their own leaders. They don't trust them. They don't believe their leaders are acting on their behalf. They don't think their leaders are competent. They don't think their leaders are decent people. Virtually all of the developed world is still purportedly democratic, but you will look a long time to find a president of any country who has overwhelming support from his own voters. That's just true. It's very odd if you think about it. So we thought it might be interesting to speak to someone who is, no exaggeration, the single most popular democratically elected president of any country in the world, by far. A man who enjoys support from his population, measured outside sources, in the high 80s to the 90%. That's how much support he has. Contrast that with our own president, whose support hovers in the mid-30s. But Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is overwhelmingly popular. Why is that exactly? Well, he's agreed to spend the next hour telling us, and we are honored to have him join us in studio. President Bukele, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Tucker, for having me.
So I'm going to just ask you the obvious question, why you're so popular, but let me just give you one guess that I thought we had dinner last night until 1 a.m. Here in our barn, and I was talking to our producers after the dinner, and you're not the first head of state that we've talked to or had dinner with. You talked less about yourself than any politician I think I've ever eaten with. So I don't know if that was a pose. You kept it going for like 5 hours, which was impressive. Maybe because you don't make it all about you. Maybe that's one of the reasons you're so popular.
I don't know. Probably if we have talked about me for 5 hours, it would be very boring, or we have cut short the dinner probably.
Well, politicians talk about themselves endlessly.
Yeah, that's why.
They're never bored by it.
Yeah, they never bore themselves, but they probably bore everybody else. So, you know.
It's interesting.
We really kept it going because we talked some, not only me, but we talked about very interesting issues regarding the world.
But you seemed interested in them. You weren't.
Of course, because, you know, civilization is in a very important moment in history.
Yes.
Human civilization, of course, and you know, it's very interesting to talk about it and to think about it. And every country and every society in the world is part of this human civilization, and you know, the path that every micro society takes into that civilization, it has to do a lot with our understanding of it. So I think it's important to talk about it and discuss it and to understand it a little, more so than talking about, you know, politics or...
Yeah, you didn't even, for a political leader, you didn't even mention politics, which I thought was very, very interesting and said something very good about you. But I'm going to assume that you're so popular because you've improved your country.
Yes.
That's why leaders are popular.
I mean, that's the main thing a politician should do.
Yes.
Is work, right?
Yeah, of course. And I've been to El Salvador 3 times in my life, twice while you were president, and I've seen that you have improved it. And we did a whole documentary on how you reduced the crime rate in El Salvador from the highest murder rate in the world, pretty much, to one of the lowest. But I wonder, just big picture for a second, how do you, as the head of state, measure the health of a country?
Well, I would think there's indicators that will measure the health of a country. The World Bank and IMF and the UN and international organizations will measure the health of a country based on, you know, GDP or economic output, or they will use this types of measurements that are, you know, they're totally fake because they don't really measure if a country is doing good or is doing bad.
Yes. They're fake.
Yeah, they're fake. Yeah.
How is GDP fake?
Oh well, if we're two guys here, and I say, "Hey, Tucker, I'll pay you $1,000 if you drink this glass of water," right? And you say, "Okay, sure," and you drink it. I pay you $1,000, and then you say, "Hey, I'll pay you $1,000 if you drink my glass of water." So I drink your glass of water, and you pay me $1,000. So basically, nobody's any richer. I just got the same $1,000 I gave you in the first place, so we just drank 2 glasses of water. But according to GDP, you just increased GDP by $2,000 and you created 2 jobs. Right? So you just, and really, if you report that to the IRS, you just created 2 jobs, 2 $1,000 jobs of drinking water people, and we increased economic output by $2,000 by creating a service that's drinking your water service in twice. So, and that established with a value of $1,000 because the market value is $1,000. So I paid I pay you $1,000 for it, and you pay me $1,000 for it. So of course this is it's an exaggeration, although it would be measured like that if you report it to the IRS. But it just portrays how these indicators don't really measure the health of a society, and common sense issues that you would think it would measure the health of a society, they don't measure them anymore, or they do measure them, but they don't. It's not in the top column. It's just just like an extra factor. But it doesn't really make any sense because what really people want is to be good, to be with their family, to be safe, and those things are not measured anymore. So you would think that that those indicators would be of great value, and they have some value, but they mostly fake, and they don't really represent the health of a society.
So I think that's very wise, and also there's quite a bit of pressure on heads of state to play along with fake measurements, correct?
Yes,
There's lots of international.
I mean,
bodies.
we have to play along with them, too. Of course,
but
everybody does.
But as someone who runs a country, how do you personally measure the health of your own country?
Well, we have the current measurements that I just said they just told you they are fake, but we still measure them. We have to, and because international organizations will base their predictions about the country with those measurements. But you have other measurements which I think are more important, like for example, safety.
Yeah.
Or crime rate, or homeless rate, or jobs, or inflation, or what about the important values of society? How are they doing?
Yes.
For example, right now the whole world economic system is trying to destroy some of the values that are more important to human beings, and not only to human beings morally, but financially. For example, savings. Savings would be a very important economic measurement, right? I mean, it's very important. Supposedly, it's very important for people to save money, right? If you earn $10,000, you should spend $8,000 and save $2,000.
Yes.
Instead of the opposite, right? Spend $12,000 and $2,000. But right now, the concept of savings has been destroyed because it doesn't make any sense to save money anymore. Because if you save money, let's say if you're in the 80s and you saved $50,000, which you could buy a house with at that time, and right now with $50,000, you can maybe change the floor. Yeah. So if you saved $50,000, then you have been robbed of 90% of your money now, because you could probably buy a house in the 80s that was maybe worth $600,000, $700,000 right now. So you were robbed of your money, and by the system, with devaluation, with inflation,
yes,
with printing more money, with no, they say the Federal Reserve is nothing federal and has no reserves, right? So they do print more money, and they rob you from your wealth and from your savings, and that's immoral. But it's not only immoral, but it also destroys some basic economic principles, like, for example, saving or your pension. I would guess you're very fluent in the American dream.
Yes.
You work hard. You can buy a home, send your kids to college, and have a good retirement. But now, if you save for retirement and you saved all your life, maybe for 40 years working, now you come into age and say, well, now my savings are not enough to sustain me, and that's because you were robbed. So, and you were legally robbed. So then those types of measurements, which are not only not measured anymore, but are also being destroyed, the fundamentals of them. So it's hard to try to fix a society where the system itself is trying to destroy the basic fundamentals that make a society successful. And you would guess what's the purpose on it. I really don't know, but I don't have any proof of their intent, but I mean, it's very clear, and there's proof of what they are doing.
So, obviously, you're opposed to crime.
Yes.
You've been very tough on it. You lowered the crime rates in El Salvador. So no one's excusing crime. On the other hand, if I walk into a liquor store or a bodega and hold it up with a gun and steal $3,000, I go to jail, and I should.
Yeah.
But if I devalue the U.S. currency and make old people penniless at scale, I don't go to jail.
No, you don't. It's like, imagine if you go. Let's portray a movie example, like a bank robbery, right? These guys go into a bank, they go in with guns, they steal all the money in the bank, the whole vault. I mean, they open the vault, they get all the money within the vault, they take it, they don't leave a penny in the bank. So you will say, oh, this bank robbers, they robbed the bank, right? But you know, a bank, I mean, any bank will have, I don't know, let's say $500 billion, one bank, right?
Yes.
They can have $500 billion.
In total assets.
Yeah, total assets, $500 billion. Now, they are only required to keep $50 billion in assets, in liquidity.
Yes.
The rest can be, you know, in loans, real estate. They can have the other money invested, right?
Yes.
Mostly in loans to their clients. So the bank only has 10% liquidity, which is $50 billion. Now, out of those $50 billion, 90% of it, it's online. I mean, it's zeros in a screen.
Yes.
It's not really cash, right?
Yes.
Bills and coins. So you would think maybe, you know, 10% of those 50 billion, they have it in cash.
Yes.
That would be a lot, but let's say they have 10% in cash, in bills and coins. So that would be 5 billion. But if this, you know, this huge bank has, let's say, you know, 200 branches. So they have, you know, offices all over, you know, in Florida, New York, in California. They have branches all over. So they will have, what, 2.5 million? Oh, that would be, yeah, like 500 billion, 50 billion in assets, 5 billion in cash, and then divided by 200, that would be 5 times 5, that would be like 25 million per bolt.
Yeah.
But that would be 10% of 10%, that would be 1%, and then this will be like 0.1% of 1%. That would be the equivalent of the bank robbers, what the bank robbers took. So they would take 0.1% of 1%. Let aside that they would have insurance and they would get all the money back. They just robbed the bank out of 0.5% of 1% of their net worth, of their assets. They will go, rightfully, to jail for 20 or 30 years. But if the Fed prints $10 trillion out of thin air, because there's no reserves that would, you know, support this new printing of new money, they will just rob you of, you know, 20% of your savings, of all human, you know, all people that uses dollars, including all Americans, including all Salvadorans, by the way, because we use the U.S. Dollar as a currency. You know, they will not pay a penny or a fine or anything because it's a legal theft.
But it's a crime anyway.
Well,
it's a moral crime.
It's a moral crime. It's not a legal crime, and that's why I think there's civilization changes coming, just because people that's been happening for quite a while now,
yes.
Probably since the 70s. But right now, people are starting to waking up and seeing these things and saying, oh, hold on, I maybe don't want to be on board these things. And of course, they don't want to, you know, I think it's probably a new economic system is on the works. And it's going to be messy because you will have, you know, the Western powers with one economic system. You will have probably the BRICS with another economic system. And look, the BRICS are growing, and they'll probably be more than half of the GDP soon, not only because the countries are growing itself, but they are inviting Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Nigeria, Argentina. So if you add up all those up, it will be above 50% of GDP. So they'll be the greatest economic power. And they will try to do an alternate economic system. I don't think people that don't want the Fed to devaluate are going to go to the other system, because it's not, it's not attractive for them to change from the Fed to Russia. It's not,
right,
or to the OPEC plus. It's not, it doesn't make sense for them. But you will see more and more people in the West, or what we call the West, trying to go into alternative systems that are more independent, that are unconfiscable, that are uncensored, and that are totally decentralized. So if you go into there, you would think, in principle, of course, we have to see, but in principle, you would think that you'd be safe of having your wealth taken away by a political decision.
So our Fed policy affects the entire world, every country in the
Definitely.
world. But it affects El Salvador directly and immediately in the same way it affects us, because you trade in the US dollar.
Yes, a little worse, because we do get all the devaluation and we get all the inflation, but we get none of the spending. So, yeah, so
you can't print it.
We can't print it. Yeah, you can print the US dollars.
Very good point.
Yeah.
So you have a PhD in the downside of Fed policy, I think.
Well, not I understand.
Yeah. No, but I mean,
the concept.
Yeah, you have to run a country that's subject to it.
Yeah.
And so you've chosen a new path very famously. Tell us what you've done and why.
Well, we haven't changed the fundamentals of our economy just because you don't change the fundamentals of an economy from one day to another, because that would be very messy.
Yes.
Even if you do things right, it would be messy, and you don't want mess, right? Yeah. You want things to grow, you want the economy to grow, you want people to be happy, you don't want people to, the economy to do well, you want your country to do well. So we're doing small steps to change some things and to give people different options. We're not changing everything right away, but we're giving people different options. So we made Bitcoin legal tender. We're the only country in the world where Bitcoin is legal tender. I mean, Bitcoin is used all over the world, even in countries where it is banned, just because you can't ban it. I mean, it's uncensorable. You can't, even if you want to censor it, you can't.
Yes.
But the only country in the world where Bitcoin is legal tender is El Salvador. That gives us an advantage in the new economic system that's in the works. And we have had some benefits from it. We have increased tourism by 95%, and that's in part because of Bitcoin. There's a lot of Bitcoiners that want to go to the only country where Bitcoin is legal tender. We have Bitcoin conferences, etc. So we're getting a lot of tourism for it. We're getting a lot of private investment also, because there are some people escaping, the censorship, or they're trying to escape the laws, trying to ban this new technology. So they go into countries that are more open to these technologies, and of course they would go to a country that is not only open, but has actually embraced the currency as its own. So we get a lot of investment, we'll get a lot of tourism, and the other thing we get is that we get some rebranding. Because El Salvador, if a lot of people don't know anything about El Salvador, but if some people know something about El Salvador, it would be bad things like MS-13,
yes,
right, or the Civil War in the 80s.
Of course.
But if you're, if you're a Bitcoiner, or if you're into technology, or into new economic systems, or into unconfiscable wealth, then you will listen and you will learn about El Salvador in a different light. We have a project of building a new city. We're mining Bitcoin with the power of volcanoes. So these types of things are not only projects that are very important for the development of our country, but they're also a rebrand. It's also a rebranding. A rebranding that will probably cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and for us it will cost nothing, because it's just making bold and good decisions, and people people will like them. So
People will like them, but then, I mean, our current economic system has a lot of stakeholders.
oh, they hate it. Yeah.
They hate it. Who hates it?
Well, the IMF, the
Yeah.
World Bank, the Fed, and some of the, most of the, if not all of the economic publications, you name it, Bloomberg, CNBC, Financial Times, Forbes, we have got a lot of bad press and fake news and FUD, like FUD, like Bitcoiners call it, from this financial publications. They will print lies. But there's something special about lies, is that they don't last long. So when people realize that these things don't make any sense, or they see from themselves the difference, like you, for example, you have gone 3 times to El Salvador in different times, and so they see things into a different light, and they see reality. So reality always imposes itself over lies, just because it's real. So it's easier to uphold it, or it's easier to show it or to demonstrate it's true. So we're taking some heat, but if you look a little back, they didn't care about us before. So right now, yes, we do have bad publications in Forbes and Financial Times, but they weren't writing about El Salvador before. It's not like we lose anything. So, and there's other publications writing interesting stories about El Salvador. Some guy this is a joke, of course, it's not, but he just said El Salvador has the most documentaries per capita. Because there's a lot of people doing documentaries about Bitcoin adoption, about surf, because we have a lot of great surfing in El Salvador. So they have a lot of security measures we're implementing against MS-13. So we're getting a lot of good press, and we're getting bad press too. But the guys printing the bad press didn't write anything about El Salvador before. So it's not that we're losing their audiences, and also their audiences are diminishing.
Right.
Because they're not even, it's not even close. They're not as important as they used to be. They're actually almost irrelevant, but they have their legacy names. But who buys a Time magazine anymore? I don't know anybody. But before it was a very important thing in a kiosk to buy a Newsweek or a Time magazine. But now who buys a magazine anymore? Who subscribes to a magazine online? Nobody. I mean, it's just really names, legacy names, and their Twitter accounts. So it's not really, they're not really mainstream media anymore. They're just accounts in social media with a legacy name of being mainstream media.
And you don't seem to care what they say.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have learned not to care. But of course, at the beginning, I do care. I did care because for me, I thought they were important. Now that I see they aren't, and since they are not treating us that well, I've learned not to care. And I think it's better because and if you look at the ratings, for example, the amount of subscribers they have, it's really ridiculous. I mean, nobody's watching them. Really, nobody watches CNN anymore. It's like, we were talking yesterday about in El Salvador, we have this news show, of course, local. And the news, the news show.
Like nightly news?
Yeah, the nightly news, the main nightly news, local nightly news.
Channel 4?
Yeah, Channel 4. They have like 1 million viewers every night. Out of 7 million people that live in El Salvador, we have 1 million viewers, which is not much. 14% of the population is watching. And then CNN, in prime time, we have like 500,000 viewers. So Channel 4 back in El Salvador has twice the ratings of CNN in the whole United States with 300 million people. So, I mean,
who cares?
It doesn't make any sense for them to be airing their shows anymore. I mean, it's
why do you think they do?
Well, because they're still sponsors that think that think that people are watching. It's like, I don't know, probably, senior citizen products that, they think that the people in charge of their marketing, they think that people still watch CNN because they watched CNN before. And probably they're not even watching CNN anymore. So, I mean, they're just airing this thing, and they will come up to senses and say, okay, let's stop airing this. It happens with some magazines and some publications. They just stop printing and they go online. It's their way of saying, okay, we know nobody's buying the magazine anymore. So it will happen.
So CNN will become a Twitter account.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it will probably become a online broadcasting before, but we know it failed with CNN Plus, so it will it'll become a Twitter account. Yeah.
So one thing we were talking about yesterday that I didn't fully understand. You have said, as someone who lives outside the United States and been to a lot of places, that the tone and worldview, the perspective of American media, is basically the same as the perspective of the Salvadoran media, as the Dutch media. It's like all media seem to have the same worldview.
Yes, because it's a franchise. It's like McDonald's or Burger King or Pizza Hut. So you have headquarters and then you have franchises. So the media, most of the media, of course not you, but most of the media, they will work like franchises. So if they print something in the New York Times, let's say, something about the war in Ukraine. So they will print something in the New York Times, but it's the same thing you'll find in Mexico. It's the same thing you'll read in Brazil. It's the same thing you'll read in Argentina. It's the same thing you'll read in Africa, in any country in Africa, in Europe, and it's the same thing. It's the same articles with some twitches, some different wording, different language, of course. But it's at the end, it's the same line, the same narrative, the same propaganda, because they are franchises. So they will work as franchises. They will be real independent media, like you, for example. But most of them, they're not independent. They have to be and respect the narrative, or they will be ousted from the group, and that's death for them, because they survive it because they're in this worldwide franchise of the mainstream media, if we want to call it mainstream media.
So that suggests that like economic measurements, it's all kind of fake.
Well, most publications will always be propaganda. That's what always happens. Not now. Since the beginning of media, the concept of media, it's propaganda. That's the concept of it. Of course, like everything, you would have exceptions, but that's the concept. It's like the concept of pharmaceuticals is that you're sick, so they can cure you of your disease, right? If everybody is healthy, then there's no business in having a pharmaceutical company, right?
Yeah.
You need people to be sick.
Yes.
Right? That's the concept. Now, of course, there will be good pharmaceutical companies and good pharmacists. Of course, there's good people everywhere. There's bad people everywhere. But the whole concept, the notion of having, it's like, if you sell weapons, you need wars, right? Why would you sell tanks and missiles if you don't have wars where you can use tanks, right? You cannot use tanks to go and hunt deer, right? You have to use tanks to go to war. So you need wars so you can sell tanks. And so the concept of it is like that. So the concept of media is propaganda. That's the whole concept, to try to control the minds of most of the population with the narrative, with the official narrative. That's why you would see most of the media always goes with the same narrative and will try to outcast anybody that doesn't have the same narrative. Like they try to outcast you because you have the same narrative as
That's true.
As the mainstream media has. That's why they hate you, because you have a lot of audience and you shouldn't. People are watching you, but you shouldn't. They shouldn't be watching you. They should be watching the mainstream media propaganda. That's the concept.
Yes.
So it has been like that since the beginning. But the difference today is that people are more interested in what's really happening. And we have social media now. So once you have something that's portrayed wrongfully into in the BBC, for example, before people watching the BBC, they just watch it. But now they will tape it with their phones, they will upload it to social media and say, look at this is fake. And people will start, it will become viral. And even if then, so social media starts to take down the videos and try to ban the, what the videos say, because, it's an infringement of their policy or whatever. They try to control, still they try to control it, but it's very hard because people are hyper-connected, and that has bad things, of course, but it has a good thing. And the good thing is that it's very hard to sell lies to an entire population that is so interconnected that they will spot lies right away. It's like if you say, oh, there's a protest in right now in, I don't know, Nigeria. And people in Nigeria will say, no, I'm here and there's no protest here. It's very hard. Before it wouldn't be like that.
No, how would you know?
Yeah. People would just eat the propaganda. Now people will question the propaganda. They will ask if this is true, whether this is true or false. They will contrast it with other information. That's probably other propaganda. But then you have two different propagandas. You will contrast them and see the differences. So, that's part of the demise of mainstream media, is that not only technology has been giving people with millions of other options, but also people are saying, why would I pay for a content that is not worthy of my buck? I mean, why would I subscribe to read the Washington Post, for example, if I know it's pure propaganda? Why would I do that? I mean, it doesn't make any sense into a consumer's point of view.
Yes.
So that's why I just think that all mainstream media, it's on demise, and they know it. That's why they're so.
But I mean, what you're describing though is a technological reality that doesn't just undermine media, but government too.
Definitely, yeah.
Right. So how does this? I mean, it's a huge threat to government. I mean, I think most governments would rather let people have guns than free speech. Free speech is a real threat to them.
Well, that's why they hate free speech.
Yes.
One of the things that is, one of the things that gets in the way of their plans and their, what they want to do with the world and with the U.S. in particular, is the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is very well written, and you would think these guys that wrote it, they were very, very smart and forward-thinking.
Yes.
And when I say forward-thinking, it's not like we are talking about 5 years from now.
Yeah.
They were talking about 200 years, 250 years from when they wrote it. I mean, they're probably more than geniuses. And I'm talking.
Yes.
And the concept of a strict free speech, even though, of course, the definition of free speech is that a lot of that speech, you're not going to like it. That's the whole definition of it, right?
Right.
But the problem is that now with social media and with hyperconnectivity and everybody having a voice, now they want to ban free speech because now they can't control the narrative like they did before. So now they want to ban free speech, and you have world leaders come up to stage in the UN or everywhere, and they would say, oh, to protect free speech, we must censor some free speech so we can protect the rest of the free speech. Yeah, I'm not making this up. I'm summarizing what they said. So you would think these Western leaders of democracies, they would be promoting free speech like they did 50 years ago, but they're not promoting it anymore. And you would have people, you would have presidents being banned from social media right here in the United States.
I know.
While they are sitting presidents. I mean, just imagine the concept of banning, even if you don't like what he's saying, that's the whole point.
It doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter. In fact, it matters. You must, the true test, if it's you will allow the free speech of someone you don't like, saying something you don't like. That's the proof, right? So, but just thinking of the concept of banning the free speech of a president, of a sitting president of the most powerful country in the world, shows you that the real powers now are way above the U.S. government power.
Yes.
So the guy, he's not in charge anymore, but the guy that was in charge of the U.S. government wasn't able to speak because he was banned from all platforms and social media platforms, of course. And that happens while he was a sitting president. So that will tell you about how scared they are about free speech. They hate it. They hate free speech. They hate the Second Amendment, for example, because how can you control so heavily armed population, right? So I mean, the Constitution, it's the U.S. Constitution. It's between them and their plans, but they are acquiring a lot of power that it's supranational. So the U.S. Constitution, it's a national thing. So since their powers are supranational, let's say Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, their powers are supranational. They don't have to abide by the U.S. Constitution. They do whatever they want. So these are not the owners of the world. These are just operators of some businesses. So this will give you like a hint of the size of the power that it's behind the things that you're seeing happening here in the U.S. or all over the world, things that don't make any sense for citizens, for families, for the country, for the well-being of human beings, for liberty, but for democracy, for free speech, for your real and basic human rights. But it makes a lot of sense for them.
So it sounds like if the leaders of individual countries are making decisions that are not in the interest of those countries, they hurt the countries they lead, that maybe their greater interest is in something beyond their countries.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yeah.
I don't see another rational explanation for that.
Yeah, it's the only rational explanation. And that's why I tweeted one time that the USA is too powerful to be destroyed from the outside. Actually, geographically, nobody can invade the U.S., the United States. Nobody. I mean, even if huge armies will collude and want to attack the U.S., it's impossible. I mean, you have to cross all the ocean, all the Pacific Ocean and all the Atlantic Ocean just to get to the shore. I mean, it's impossible, right? And the U.S. has military bases, so it's impossible. So the only way the U.S. can fail, and this is not my my analysis. This was made by presidents before, by U.S. presidents before. The demise of the U.S. has to come from within. Right? The enemies have to be inside, not really outside. No external enemy can cause so much damage as internal. It's an internal operation. When you're watching internal operations here, you can see them in cities that were pristinely beautiful 30 years ago are wastelands right now. You would see people, I mean, I'm from El Salvador, a third world country in Central America. And myself, I can see cities here and say, I wouldn't live here. So that would be unthinkable 3 decades ago. Totally unthinkable. That a Salvadoran wouldn't want to live in a U.S. city, in a U.S. main city. I mean, Los Angeles, San
New York,
Francisco,
Chicago, yeah.
Well, Philadelphia, Baltimore. When you look how the cities are eroding so fast, this has to be by design. I mean, who would make so many stupid decisions? Like, okay, we're gonna give you money for drugs. Really, they're doing that. in some cities, they're giving people drugs. I mean, they're literally giving people drugs in some U.S. cities. Or they say, okay, we're going to give you money if you don't work. Or we're going to, they make all of these laws that make no sense. Or if they have a high crime, okay, I have a solution. Let's defund the police, right? They make this analysis here. And you see all these campaigns, defund the police. You'll see these campaigns of, let's allow shoplifting up to this amount. They make these decisions openly. I mean, it's not even a secret. They make it. They make them openly. And we all know what would be the consequence of it. It's like, I always use this example. I know the U.S. Grows a lot of corn, but in El Salvador we do grow some corn and we also grow beans. So I always make the example that you can either plant corn or you can plant beans. It's fine, but you cannot plant corn and expect beans to show up, or you cannot plant beans and expect corn to show up. So if you plant a defunding of the police, allow for shoplifting, give drugs to drug addicts, give money for people to stop work, what would be the consequence of it? You will destroy the society, you will destroy the city, you will destroy the economy. And it's not only a logical thing to think, it's already happening. And when they see more problems, they say, oh, so we need more of the same solutions that caused these problems in the first place. And they enact more of them. So they have more problems. And they enact more of the same solutions that cause those problems. They have more problems. So you would think these people, they can be so dumb. Of course they're not. They're smart. They're very smart people. So why are they doing these things? Because it's by design. It has to be by design. There's no other logical explanation.
Certainly defund the police and giving drugs to drug addicts. I mean, you're trying to destroy things.
Yeah.
But there's no other explanation. But why?
Because, I don't know why. I mean, there's some things I know because they're there, like what we just spoke about. I mean,
yes.
It's not like, it's not private or secret information. Everybody that wants to know, he knows because it's there, it's public, it's, verifiable, people can look it up. So if you ask me why, that I don't know, because it's not public, it's not verifiable. You cannot just look it up. So I don't have an answer. I can make my guesses, but it would be an uneducated guess at best. So it's very hard to know why.
Some of this stuff seems like it's the result of generational affluence. I'll guess that. I mean, people stay rich long enough, they get decadent. I think we see that in families, we see it in countries. Your country's gotten a lot more prosperous. I mean, your country had this horrible civil war. Yeah. A huge percentage of your population left and came here in other countries. And now people are coming back. So your country's getting richer. Are you worried that these kinds of problems, this sort of social chaos, will come with the fact you're getting richer?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, I understand the concept of, hard times create strong people create good times create weak people create bad times.
Yes.
I understand the concept. I don't think it's that simple.
I guess to make the question a little more precise, there are NGOs, international agencies, governments that push these policies on weaker countries.
Yes, they are pushing it very hard.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you resist that?
By publicly resisting it. I mean,
publicly resist.
Yes, I mean they will try to push their agendas in our country as well, like every other country. And since we are a small, relatively poor country, of course they can, their money is worth more, so they can, they can hire people. They can. But there's some stronger forces. For example, common sense. Most people, most politicians will think of their people as, having no common sense, or they have to shove their agendas down their throats just because they're in power. But that doesn't really work, does it? Because like you said at the beginning, there's almost no world leader that has the approval of his people.
No.
So it's not really working. But if you understand that your citizens, they have common sense, they're smart, they want smart, common sense, real solutions for their real problems, and not some agenda that they don't care about, or actually they don't want that agenda within, close to their lives. So when you go out and say, okay, we're not going to push this agenda because it's not in the benefit of our people, we're going to do this and we're going to do that because that is in the benefit of people. Do you agree? Yes, we agree. Okay, then we're going to do that. Some people will say, oh, but that's, you're standing against the NGOs and the international organizations. That's so brave. But I don't think it's brave. I just think it's common sense and understanding your people have common sense, and they want their leaders to have common sense, so they will support you standing up against those things and actually doing the things that they want you to do, and not the things that the NGOs want you to do because they don't want them. So I really think it's not that hard. If a leader really, or a politician, or a person in any position of government really wants to do the best for his people, he can do it. And you can find, I will not do examples because I don't want to meddle in U.S. politics, but there are examples in U.S. politics of people that want to do, they seem like they genuinely want to do the best for their people, and they're very well supported by their population, by their constituents.
So you didn't start life in politics. No. I don't think your family's political. You're from a business family. You were in business. You did a bunch of different things in business. And then you got elected mayor, I think, of your hometown?
Yeah, of not my hometown, but the town I live.
The town that you live?
Yeah, I live in a small city in the outskirts of the capital.
Yeah.
It's called Nuevo Cuscatlán. I was mayor there first.
And then you're mayor of the capital city.
Then I ran for mayor of the capital. And then I was ousted by my party, which was one of the two main parties. We had a bipartisanship like in the States.
Yes.
We had a bipartisanship over there. I was ousted. I was kicked out from my party. And
for criticizing its leaders.
Yes, definitely. And we made a movement out of common folks. We got the signatures. We made a new party. We won the presidency in 2019 with 53% of the vote, which was considered, for us, it was a wow, because we just destroyed bipartisanship in the two-party system in El Salvador with a 53% of the vote. But now, when you look back, actually 53% was only half the people. So yeah, we had enough support at the time. We thought it was a lot, but now we see it was only half. But we've been working ever since, and I know people seem to like what we're doing.
Well, yeah, you're the most popular elected leader in the world by far. You've had credible approval surveys putting you over 90%, which really only exists when you hold guns to people's heads. And you're not. So it's an amazing thing. What's surprised you about politics now that you're running a country? What were you shocked to learn?
The scale of corruption.
Yeah.
I would when I was a kid, I would watch politics in my country, of course, in other countries, in the U.S., in the world, and I always thought that Latin America, everybody knows Latin American countries are filled with corruption. It's like very corrupt.
Yes.
Political system. It has and not only Latin America. We saw the president of Afghanistan fleeing his country with a plane with like $100 million in cash or something like that.
They had trouble getting off the tarmac.
Yeah, because he was carrying gold. He was carrying gold and diamonds.
Yeah.
So this politics in the third world, they're very corrupt. Everybody knows that. Latin America, Africa, some Asian countries, they're very, very corrupt. But I thought that the first world, or the developed world, they didn't have corruption within their political system just because you have checks and balances.
Yes.
You will have, investigative agencies that will go after. I mean, if a president flies in his plane with $100 million in cash, you won't see that in the States. I mean, no U.S. president has ever flown in a plane with $100 million in cash. I would bet. I mean, I don't know, but I would bet no U.S. president has.
I would bet that too.
Yeah. So because it's, so I said, once these third world countries achieve that level of purity in their, that's what I thought when I was a kid, like very innocent and naive person. I thought once our countries achieve that level of purity in their political systems, then these countries will be developed as well. But what I really found out is that the more money a country has, the more corrupt it is. Although, of course, its corruption is more sophisticated. They will not, carry money in a plane. They would do other things, book deals, speeches,
art.
Yes, they will. Yeah, they will sell paintings, or so it's more sophisticated, but it's higher. It's hundreds of millions of dollars in these things. Probably billions, of course, billions of dollars in these things. So you would see that weapon deals, pharmaceutical deals. I mean, you would think this billion, not $1 billion, but this $1 billion contracts, right, for weapons, for pharmaceuticals, for mainstream media, for you name it, right? For everything, for nation building, for a lot of things, even mercenaries. I mean, this huge industries. They have two sides. There's the people in the private sector, and there's people in the in government. So the people in government must be getting their cut, and their cut should be huge. And we just mentioned a couple, is what we can see, but of course there's the other that we can't see. And so once you learn that actually corruption is everywhere, it's not only in the third world countries, or not only in puppet presidents, but actually also in the puppeteers, and more so in the puppeteers. Of course, the puppet will get a smaller cut. That's why he takes the bags with the money, because it's his cut, right?
Yeah.
So he gets the smaller cut, then the other guy gets a bigger cut, then the bigger guy gets a bigger cut, then the biggest guy gets the biggest cut, right? So once you understand that most of the political system is corrupt, then you understand how you should behave in front of that corrupt system, knowing that, of course, you're not corrupt and you want to fight it, but you don't have the strength to fight it. But at least you can keep your people safe from it, and you can do the best you can from your work and try to stay safe. I think that's enough in
Can you stay? I mean, I wonder about that. I mean, I agree with everything you just said, and I grew up thinking that problems like corruption or political assassination, these were all features of Mexico.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that anymore. But the fact remains, you are out of step, not on the small things, on the big things, like monetary policy, what our economy should look like, and what democracy is. You're out of step with, some of the biggest players in the West. So does that make you concerned at all?
Yes, it does. But, I think part of it is staying safe. I mean, we never know. God knows, what will happen. But part of it staying safe, it's come out in public and say the things.
Yes.
It's harder. I mean, they have done it before with a lot more important people, so they can do it, of course. But they have many enemies, not one. They have a lot of people calling these things out. They have been censoring all of these people, because it's easier to censor than just go and eliminate every person saying bad things about them. It's too hard. They cannot. So a part of staying safe, I think, is going public, being transparent, and being, say the things that you know and you want to say, and that you think that they must be said. And I mean, they haven't done anything to you, and that's because you're saying the things you want to say, and it would be too expensive for them. It's cheaper for them to smear you, to say bad things about you, to have people think that you're a bad person, which you're not. But it's easier for them to do those things. Go and straight and eliminate you. That would be, too messy, and it will probably be against their own plans. So I really think one way to stay safe is being true to yourself and saying the things out loud, so people can, listen to them, make their own decisions about it, and know what you stand for. So it would be a little more expensive for them to eliminate all opposition in front.
You have to kill a lot of people.
Exactly.
Last obvious question, but since we do have so many Salvadorans living in this country, how many Salvadorans live in the U.S., do you think?
2.5 million.
2.5 million. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And they, at least according to the polls, agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Like, how did we miss that? How do we miss that all these, at least speaking for myself, I agree with you. So I didn't realize that we had millions of Salvadorans here, legally and illegally, who agree with you and me. Like, when did that happen?
Well, I think, there are things that probably some Salvadorans won't agree with you or me.
Yeah.
But, there's fundamental human values that are universal. And there's a reason why they are universal. If you're a believer, you would say God. I would say God myself. If you're not a believer, you would say nature, the universe, the order of things. So there are things that are universal. And these concepts that are logical, universal, they have been like that for all of civilization. There's a huge, the system or the ones in power, they want to change that. They want to change these universal concepts that are very strong within everybody. So even though, a Catholic might think different than an evangelical Christian, for example, they will have some of the same principles within themselves. You pay your debt, you take care of your neighbor, you care for your family, you protect your family, you raise your kids. There's some fundamental values that are very important. You protect your wealth, your saving is good. We can go on for hours.
Yeah.
There's very fundamental values, like stealing is bad, killing is bad, raping a child is bad, but there's even movements about that. So with those fundamental values that are so dear to most of the people in the world being under attack by the elites, a lot of people are saying, hey, this guy, he's in a very good position, but he's not a member of the elites. Actually, the elites hate him, in your case, right? And he's saying the truth. He's saying the things I believe are true. So I agree with him. So sometimes you would find support or people that agree with you in places you don't expect it, just because we are all human beings and we all have the same values.
Amen. Mr. President, thank you for spending all this time with us.
Thank you, Tucker.
And what a way to end. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tucker Carlson is the name of the show. New episodes 3 days a week on Fox Nation. And of course, we'll see you every weeknight, 8 p.m. on the Fox News Channel.